You are listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
The Imperium. How mighty its aspect. How far-reaching its boundaries. As one world dies, 10 more are brought into the fold. Fear us! For we count the lives of planets, not men.
And then we just enter in like this. Hey guys, welcome to the very first episode of Calls of Lore.
Woo, just jumping us right in.
Eric's like, how do we open this thing? I was like, well, we start like this and then we do it.
We go, and here we are.
Because there's really no good way to do this.
Oh, there's not. I had the jitters getting ready to do this episode. By the way, I'm Eric.
I'm Ben. And with us is a first-time podcaster ever. He's going to be a guest with us. He'll jump in when he wants, and he won't when he wants. His name's Dan. Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Good. Yeah.
Good.
You're right. It's hard to just jump in.
I know. Yeah. He totally ambushed me. And it's because I said I was nervous going in. And he's
he's like, can I take one more cigarette? I'm like, you just had one. He's like, yeah, but I'm nervous about this. I'm like, all right, well, fuck. Anyway, guys, welcome to the very first episode of Cult of Lore. This is going to be a little bit different, just in case you didn't watch that episode 0.
Right. Which we tried to let you know what you were in for with this.
Yeah, this is where we take a fictional universe, a big one, preferably, and we really kind of dive into it and learn what makes it special. And there's a lot of them out there. And I'm going to keep saying it because it's going to be a slow podcast. It's going to have some slow releases.
Yes.
But we're going to do one once a month. And for starting out, we're going to cover just one fictional universe, but we are going to end up covering other things as well.
Right.
So we'll be paying attention when you're like, hey, could you cover this universe or that universe? We're paying attention to all of that. We're starting off with Warhammer 40K, the grim darkness of the far future. But we will also be covering Lord of the Rings,
Wheel of Time.
I
want to cover.
Even ones like the Xenomorphs from the movie Aliens, the Yautja, which is also like the technical name for the aliens and the predators. I'd love to do stuff like that. Godzilla is actually my original fandom before all fandoms. We'll get into Star Wars when I feel like putting my shit-kicking boots on at some point. And so just stay with us.
And plenty more. It's
on
not
and
an
on.
exhaustive list.
It is an infinite list. Dune, we're going to have to eventually cover Dune, especially
Dune.
Because a lot of what we cover here was kind of borrowed, lifted, copied, homaged, whatever, to Dune.
Yes. So
with that, let's dive right into this.
Yes.
So on this episode, we're covering things specifically from the point of view of the Imperium.
Yes.
The Imperium is the human faction in the 40K universe. It is the main, what could be called the main characters, the lens through which the 40K universe is told.
Yeah, from everything, and I'm still I would consider myself still very new to the Warhammer universe, but it certainly does seem to be like they're the perspective characters, if you can call them that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which makes sense.
And what's kind of cool is we have varying degrees of newness to this universe because Eric's the newest.
Yes.
I'm actually the second newest, having not been familiar with this for maybe about 2 years now and have really started to dive into it. But Dan, you've actually been a fan of 40K before me.
Yeah, I've played some games. I don't collect armies myself, but I also really like to get into the lore.
Right. See, I have absolutely, like, as much as I'm in love with this and as much as it was my drive to cover 40K first, I actually am not familiar with the rules of the game and have nenever played a game in my life.
Right. And
so,
I've been kind of sidetracked by that. I kind of like, researching all this lore and stuff. I did because I actually really love like fantasy lore and sci-fi sort of lore and stuff, but I totally like went down this rabbit hole of like the game itself. Like I was watching hours of people play the game and stuff like that. I'm like, God damn it, it's kind of helpful because it helps you get familiarized with them, but it's still like you're watching die roll and moving the models around, which I love it. But It was a distraction from what I needed to be doing for this show.
Right. No, and so yeah, what'll end up happening is, and this is actually kind of how this thing tends to go down, is Eric will fill me in on the technical aspects of a thing, and then I'll be like, yeah, but and then I'll come in with the story, and so we kind of end up putting those together.
Yeah.
So Dan, and I think in the last episode we kind of declared our loyalties. I don't remember, but if we didn't, I'm going to do that on the outset. I am a loyalist, and I'm a blood angel. That is where my bias lies. I am pro Imperium, but I am also I am a son of Sanguinius. Eric, what about you?
Definitely pro Imperium.
As it currently stands, as being the newest.
Right. Yeah. From what I'm from where. Yeah. Just based on the information that I know now, I would say that I am a loyalist. Yep.
But you do like the Orcs.
I do. Oh, I love the Orcs. Yes. I just think they're the happiest ones that exist in this universe.
If I had to pick a race to be in the 41st millennium, it'd be an Orc, because they're
actually enjoying themselves.
Yeah. They are the only ones enjoying themselves.
And I'd like to enjoy myself in whatever universe I exist in. So maybe I'm more pro Orc at the end of the day, but I relate more to the people of the Imperium, perhaps.
Yeah, and I dare say you're a Krieger.
Oh man, you're calling me out straight up. No, they've been the most. They're the ones that have captured me the most. I love their gung-ho-ness. I've always kind of liked that in any sort of fiction, like the charge forth, for higher cause, off we go, and they're just like
they have to be restrained.
Yeah.
It's the Imperium writ large, and then the Krieg is like, guys, slow down.
yeah. Like,
so I love that kind of tenacity, especially from like underdog types, and they seem like underdog types that just will rip apart your ankles so they can get to your throat.
Exactly. What about you, Dan?
Well, what I like about 40K is the over-the-topness with like the completely serious face.
Absolutely.
So, 1 minute I'm, Ave Imperium. The next I'm like, blood for the blood god. Skull throne, So I guess Alfarius.
Oh, well, as long as you're not a Tal, that's fine.
Okay, I'm not familiar with Alfarius.
Alfarius is the Primarch of the Alpha Legion.
Okay.
As is
okay,
Omega,
so
maybe.
Oh my God. No, not maybe. There's two. Anyway, guys, if this doesn't make any sense to you, this is just a little inside banter. Trust me, we're going to get there.
And I'm about as lost as you are, so don't worry.
So what is the Imperium and how did it get there? The Imperium is basically the kingdom of man in the 41st millennium 4-1. Like, it's way in the far future.
Right.
And it is over 1 million planets, I believe, is the number they like to cite. So if you were to go outside on the darkest night you could at your house and look up at all the stars that you could see, every single one of those is an Imperium planet. That is how far their kingdom stretches.
Jeez, oh man.
And that's kind of the thing that we're wanting to get across in this first episode is if I had to pick one thing that the Warhammer 40K universe has over virtually any other universe that I know of, it is scale. God damn, this thing is huge.
Well,
go ahead.
It's so big and they can play off itself that even the information they put out is untrustworthy.
Right. You literally have two factions in the Imperium. One is trying to uncover the truth of things because it's so large and so vast that this is a kingdom that has literal forgotten history. And so you have one group that is trying to uncover the forgotten history of this vast kingdom, but you also have another group working for the same kingdom who is trying to keep the truth hidden because they're afraid the enemies will discover something that it can use. And so they're actively putting out misinformation at the exact same time.
And the game's been going for so long, the lore's so old that that lets them retcon stuff.
Yeah,
things become true and false.
So there is a statement that I believe is attributed to one of the higher ranking members of Games Workshop who has said that there actually is no such thing as retcon in the 40K universe. Things that are gone and unmentioned may pop themselves back up the next. For fuck's sakes, we had a Primarch return. There are the Zotes, I believe they're called, which is a race of Tyranids, which is alien species that were retconned retconned, quote unquote, out of existence, and they've just
except for the squats, the space dwarves.
No, they're coming back. The squats are coming back. Listen, the space dwarves, they can tout all they want, but they're bringing all this stuff back, and there's absolutely room for the squats. God damn it, it's in the name, squats. They can fit anywhere. Like you're telling me that in this universe that has, oh my God, what? A grenade that can set off a plague that destroys an entire planet, but they don't have room for space dwarves? Absolutely not.
I think it's just a part of their history that they're trying to bury.
Why?
Why? The metal cast dwarves with the mohawks.
That's awesome.
It's the best part of Warhammer. In my
but
opinion.
Perhaps it's some sort of who do you think Games Workshop is trying to bury it, or the Imperium is?
No, the Games Workshop. This is outside.
Well, I wonder if okay.
So I wonder if they have a problem with the squats. Don't call them squats. Call them, I don't know.
Well,
mids.
I had
mids.
read something.
Call them mids. MIDS. They're not quite tall. They're not quite short. They're mids.
I had read something that I can't really source it, but they were kind of talking about how, and don't quote me too hardcore on this, but like something to do with like they just couldn't make them unique enough from like apparently with the Eldar, like okay, sure, they're elves on the very surface, but they've made them different enough and given them enough of their own story, and perhaps I guess they couldn't do that with the squats, which I have a hard time. Believing.
I can't fathom that's the
one of the stories I had heard on the matter.
So what you do is instead of
I don't know.
Well, hell, do you even have to? Is my argument. Do you really need to change them that much?
My thing is like, how hard could it fucking be?
Instead of like stone haulers, make them bikers. Like who? Like what?
Just
then it's like, are they a faction? Are they units? Like who they?
Make them mercenaries. Hell, make them a neutral faction. I could see squats working for Eldar. I could see them working for the Imperium. I could see them working for any of the factions that's not orcs or nids.
Yeah,
maybe not chaos. Although you could definitely do that.
And I'm not terribly familiar with squats, so just a little bit of a recap on them. They're basically dwarves, right?
Yeah. They're space.
Well, they're humans that have been stranded so long genetically that they've become dwarves.
So they're kind of like the reverse Ogrins, which Ogrins are humans that have mutated into these big, bulky, stupid motherfuckers.
Right.
Squats are kind of the opposite of that.
So they went
short
and
hefty,
and basically became what we would imagine as a fantasy dwarf.
Yeah, they're a space dwarf.
Okay, space dwarf.
Some of this stuff I don't think requires a really highbrow layer to cover it. It doesn't.
It's just evolution.
So before we ever touch anything of which we've already touched, guys, the one thing that I absolutely love about this universe is this shit's got something for fucking everyone. You just gotta find it. And like, I do not like people that when they find something that they like, they immediately try to suck their friends in. I'm like, you have to find something you think they'll legitimately be interested in. And goddamn it, in 40K, there's something. You've just got to find it. You got a friend who's into anime? Okay, point them at the Tau. They're psychic aliens and all of their shit looks like Japanese space robots. Throw them in that direction. You got a friend who's like super Catholic Imperium. There you go. They're one step away from
the ecclesiarchy.
There's something for everybody. And so the fact that there's not dwarves in there, I think is just a bummer.
It's a travesty.
I think they could, you don't need to change them. Just stick them in there. Space dwarves. We're good. Go. Off you go.
I mean, honestly, like for real, just accept it.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what do you, like,
it's
make
not
them
the
like,
most absurd thing.
All you have to do is say, like, their homeworld is very dwarf-like. So they have the castles. They work with stone. But once they're out in the Imperium, they're something else. And you can make them, I don't know, tunneler troops or something. Like, diggy, diggy hole, motherfucker. Like,
I love that song.
Like, I don't buy that they can't make them fit. I'm sorry. That pish posh, I said. Pish posh.
So, and again, very soft quote there. Like, I couldn't even tell you where I read that. It might have been reading about it.
So I've watched a few things about why this, and that seems to be their fallback quote.
Gotcha.
So you are correct.
Okay.
I'd forgotten about that, but once you said it, I was like, no, I have heard this before. And I dismissed it then, and I dismiss it now.
Yeah.
So the Imperium, as I said, when you look up at the stars, everything is the Imperium and beyond. Right. So how did humanity get that way? So mankind kind of goes along its history as we are kind of right now until we get to the kind of point that's more or less like Star Trek.
Okay.
Star Trek Star Trek, for those of you that don't know, a lot of people like to tie it to like a communism thing. That's nonsense. It is a post-scarcity society, which means that our technology has achieved the point where we can make shit almost out of nothing. It's almost alchemy. Right. Like you give a machine a stone block and it'll make you a cheeseburger with a side of fries. Like that type of technology. Mankind did it. We got there and we were the big boys in the galaxy. There was absolutely nothing. No elves, no orcs, no nothing was able to even... It was to the point where orcs, who, as we kind of covered in the episode 0, they have absolutely no mindset other than war. Like they are not genetically capable of not being violent. It's not a question of personality or nature or nurture. Like it is hardwired into the brain.
Yes.
They were making truces with mankind because they were like, this is not even a war. This is extermination. And then we fucked up because, mankind. We made AI. And while that's not the only reason that the kind of...
It's not. There was a perfect storm.
It was, but that's what... But I think it was. There were several things that happened at once, but I think we could have weathered any of them if we weren't fighting the war with the Men of Iron.
Well, if we didn't make ourselves so reliant on them and completely let them...
Yeah. So we created AI, and what always happens when AI... There was a fight, a big war. It's called the War Against the Men of Iron. And it's where all of the AI that mankind had come to rely on to run, not quite Wall-E level, but I mean, I'm sure that wasn't far on the horizon.
It was a galactic spanning empire.
Yeah. And we didn't do almost nothing. So there was a lot of AI, and it all suddenly turned on us. Oof. Now, also at the same time, I believe, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but at the same time, Slaanesh was being born, which caused... So Slaanesh is a god of this thing that we call the warp. Again, guys, I'm not covering... You've got to watch the episode 0. Like, you've got to. It explains all the factions because Christ.
Right. Touches on them. This is all broad over.
This is very broad strokes.
We're getting deeper later, but
yeah. So Slaanesh was being born, which was this dimensional god that was causing the warp, the dimension to which mankind was using travel to cross great distances at a short period of time, to become turbulent and impassable, therefore cutting off ships that would usually take months to get to their destinations, weeks, and now took light years or hundreds of thousands of years.
Right.
Impossible to get to
whole generations.
Sublight travel.
Right. So imagine imagine like a planet that was relying on shipments of, let's just say, wheat. It's a rock planet that's great in ores and metal. But it's a mining planet, but it doesn't grow crops.
Cannot farm.
So they get all of their food delivered once a month or once every couple of weeks, because in 40K, even traveling through the warp at what we'll refer to as warp speed.
Yes.
That's not what it's referred to.
Right.
But for the sake of
it's
kind
shorthand.
Good
shorthand.
For warp speed, even at the best of times, is an iffy prospect. Up to and including coming out in a goddamn different era of time.
Oof.
Because you just hit a pocket of the warp that is really unstable and you pop out two millennia later. Have fun, motherfucker.
Not even to mention the denizens of the warp that can get you.
Right, and that's not even... That's not even talking about... The warp is not just an uninhabited dimension. It's basically hell. I'll tell you a film that does this spectacularly, and there's the guy that directed it, I believe, actually came out later saying he was a fan of 40K. So a lot of people are like, this is a 40K film.
I think I know what you're talking about.
It's Event Horizon.
Yep.
Okay.
Event Horizon did this fabulously. To also backtrack, a ship has a thing called a Geller field, which is what allows it to travel through the warp completely unmolested. So you have these demon-like... The warp is hell.
It's like the mental space of all sentient living creatures. And since we all suck, it's hell. Hell is other people.
Well,
hell is other people.
And it's also played into factors that are not mankind's fault, though, because you had the war in heaven from the Eldar, the Necrons, and all these older factions.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Don't orcs also have some influence on the warp too, or are they?
So actually, I don't believe they do. Okay. That's why they have that. That's
probably a good thing.
Oh my God, yeah. Can you imagine? Yeah, and neither do the Tyranids. Thank fucking Christ.
Jeez, isn't that amazing?
They're the shadow in the warp. Yeah,
They are the anti-warp.
Interesting.
But that's why the orcs have the war energy. That's how they do things.
Okay.
The old ones, not to get off on a tangent, but the old ones, which are like for lack of a better term, they are the oldest first sentient race known in the Warhammer 40k universe. Okay. When they came along and ended up fighting a war with this other race called the Necrons, they created two races to help them fight. One was super warp dependent and psychically heavy, which was the Eldar. And they were meant to be this elegant psychic fighting force that would help repel the Necrons using the warp. The orcs, then known as the Krunk, I believe.
Kork. With a K.
Korks. Right. That's what they were known at the time. That's orcs if they actually got above drowning in your own soup IQ level.
It's like if you sent your orcs to West Point.
Yeah. So they created them, and they were actually kind of like the direct opposite of the Eldar. They didn't touch the warp. They were very like violent and very like, even though they were more intelligent than the orcs we know in the 40k universe, I imagine they were probably still like, oh, I like wearing my guy's face on me shoulder. I imagine they were still pretty goddamn brutal.
Right. Yeah.
So it is fortunate that the two races that don't that just throw themselves sacrificially into battle don't feed into the warp, because that would be a fucking nightmare. The orcs and the nids, that would destabilize the warp into something that would just be...
But it's also a little disheartening to see, like, okay, but look how bad it got with just humanity and the Eldar and, these other guys running.
Well, there are
that bad?
Numerous sentient races out there in the universe
that the Imperium is exterminated.
Yeah. Very, very xenophile. Or xenophobic.
Right.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this. I would be too. Can you imagine like when you're humankind, right? And you're like going out into the stars for the first time and you encounter an orc. You're just like, oh, well, no. Huh, we're not doing this. Absolutely fucking not.
But I mean, do you think there was a chance? I know this is the grim dark of the future, but do you think there was a chance that a different approach might have yielded different results?
There are numerous examples of civilizations that did cooperate with aliens, and for a time it might work, but it either fell apart from their own problems or an outside force, like the Imperium. I can't remember the name of the race. They had a really fucked up planet with big ass monsters, and to combat that, they made really cool mechs. And their whole thing is they teamed up with orangutan aliens to make these.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was, and Horus was sent to communicate with them, and it was right around the time he was starting to get fucked with.
Okay.
And he exterminated them instead of trying to cooperate.
Yeah, but he was being manipulated.
Yeah. I have to look up the name of that empire.
Sure.
They had centaurs, basically.
There are plenty of examples. Cool. There are plenty of examples of peaceful races being exterminated by the Imperium. The problem is, with just completely blaming them, in my opinion, is that they had suffered such a traumatic, they had just been absolutely devastated.
Right. So, yeah, that was my question. Is was it a policy that kind of developed over time, or was it just kind of other things?
No, I think it was I think in the golden age of tech. So in the golden age of technology, we know that they had truces with orcs. So they were clearly willing to work with alien races.
Okay.
But the thing is, once the kind of height of man started to collapse, the orcs were like, oh, they're weak.
Right.
But also at the same time, while the warp was becoming unstable, they had a rash of things attacking them from the warp called enslavers.
Well, so the humans around this golden age, right, with Slaanesh acting up, we were getting a lot more psychic activity.
Right,
humanity is a potential psychic race,
which is what led to the birth of the Psykers.
Yep. So they were being, and some civilizations embraced the Psykers and some shunned them. The ones that shunned them ultimately
did a lot better.
Yeah, they ultimately weathered the storm better.
Wow.
I know, it's funny. It's like sometime in the 40k universe, often doing the cruel thing on the individual level is the better thing for the. I am not going to utter the GG word. We're going to say the larger people around, because only the filthy Xenos believe in the greater good.
Oh, the Tau.
Listen,
they get so much hate.
They are my second favorite punching bag, right below the Ultramarines.
And you know what's funny is they're getting more and more interesting to me as we go along.
Of course,
so
they
I'm
are.
That doesn't surprise you,
Not,
does it?
Not at all.
Nope.
Not at all.
Damn it.
No. So Mankind, the Kingdom, was fighting things on multiple fronts.
Right.
They were fighting the Men of Iron, which was a huge problem because it was like all of their technology turned against them. The warp had become impassable, which had completely cut off all their supply chain. Jeez. And then they got attacked by this. It's not a Xenos race. They're not aliens. They're more like demons. They were enslavers. Okay. And what they would do is the Psychers that we had talked about would unwittingly open a portal from the warp and allow these things to come rushing out. And what these things did, they're called enslavers. Like,
right.
They take over your mind. And when they take over your mind, it allows a door for more enslavers to come out. And these things look like giant floating like gas bags with tentacle arms. They are quite grotesque. And so like all of these things were happening at the same time. So you can also see that's another example of why. Yep. Eric just pulled one up. Yep, those are enslavers.
Those kind of like jellyfish looking things with the tentacles hanging down?
Yep.
Oh.
And it's not just them. The Psychers could also be possessed by demons.
Yep.
Demons from the warp.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Enforcers, are they like a separate, they're a psychic race, or are they demons? I can't remember.
Oh man.
Honestly,
I think they're distinct.
I'm not entirely sure on that. But so they were fighting these enslavers as well, and you can kind of see why the Imperium would be xenophobic, right? Like they don't know that there are quote unquote demons in the warp. To them, these are just aliens that attack Psychers.
Right. It's
so
you just look like another one of these other fucked up things that are floating around out in the galaxy.
The thing. How do you distinguish like an alien from a demon? You know, it's all foreign.
Yeah, exactly. So you have the Men of Iron that are attacking. You have the Orcs who have sensed your weakness and they're now attacking. You have these enslavers that are cropping up all over your psychic worlds. Oh. And also, I have absolutely no doubt, although I haven't looked it up, come on. I'm sure the Drukhari, which are the Dark Eldar, which again are basically like space elves who started a really, really, really in-depth Hellraiser cult. Like,
they're doing it for survival, but it's
fuck them. Like, I don't care that they are. And yes, they are. They torture and feed off of suffering in order to survive their race. I give no shits. But these things, whenever they're all leather and bondage and razors and peeling flesh and hooks and pleasure is pain and pain is pleasure and all that crazy shit. Anytime any race suffers kind of a weakness, they love to go on raiding parties and just wipe out like whole civilizations to use as like torture food, I guess is a good
food.
Torture meals is a good way of putting
satiate
it.
that.
Yep.
So after this collapse, the universe is chaos.
Right. So that is how all of this collapsed. I mean, it wasn't like I've heard some people describe it as pure hubris, and I'm like, it is on the fact that we relied so much heavily on warp travel, although how you solve that, even the Imperium haven't solved that yet. Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, everything came gunning for mankind's ass at one time. And I don't know a single civilization that could withstand that sort of pressure.
It kind of reminds me.
The Eldar sure as hell didn't. And it wasn't half as bad.
Well,
they did it to themselves, you stupid fucks.
Well, when they created Slaanesh, what was half of them? Less, I don't know if it was more than half.
I think
there was an insta-death. Where
it was slightly more than half. Yeah. So you find out that the reason why Slaanesh is being born is because the Eldar are so high on their own farts.
Well, they're elves, so they're supposed to be like, I don't know, extreme. They feel their emotions more. Higher highs,
yes, it is important that Eldar the space elves literally feel emotion at like 5 or 6 times more than mankind does as part of their genetic makeup.
Whoa.
And there was a small faction that rejected the descent into depravity.
Right.
Those are the leftover elves that we get as the good guys in the future, the Eldari.
Okay.
We can just say Eldar, it's fine.
Eldar. The rest of them continued to murder fuck until a god was born.
Right. Yeah. So basically,
Oh, Jesus.
as mankind is ascending, the Eldar are the reigning class of the universe. And as mankind is ascending, they're descending because they're so used to being top of the class. They've reached Wall-E levels. Like, they don't have to do anything for anything for anything.
Right.
I think there's even reference to, like, they had technology that could make thought reality. Like, it wasn't about
they have the webway, which is like a structured space in the warp that they have control over.
It's like their own private kingdom and passageways.
They have their own like first class to the warp.
Yes,
basically.
Yeah.
Yes, that's free of demonic incursion. Although it can be attacked from the outside if it gets stirred up.
Okay. Which is what happened here. So, like, Slaanesh is what caused all these warp storms that interrupted.
So Slaanesh is being born, and the convalescent. So
her gestation is causing the storms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So the Eldar, because they don't have anything to do, they start getting into just making themselves feel good, and that develop. And so you can imagine, like, they're feeling pleasure, they're feeling all of these things, desire 6 times or 7 times, or a magnitude order higher than what mankind does. And we already know what men are like when they get hooked on drugs. Imagine something like that.
Oh, God.
So they start getting so depraved in their acts as a society and a race. Yeah, we can say that. It's big enough. As a race, they get so depraved that that these emotions that they're eliciting that are being fed into the warp gestate into a god.
Ugh.
Which, while this thing's gestating, creates the warp storms, which helps fucker humanity.
And when it is born, the Prince of Pleasure, he has a bunch. It's a fourth dimensional entity of pleasure. So it's whatever you want it to be. It's a him, it's a her, it's a they.
Right.
It's all of these things. So when it's born, it blows all the warp storms out and create what the Eye of Terror. It creates this giant rift in space.
Literally, it being born rips a hole in reality that allows basically a free tunnel between the warp and our reality. And
so it's just a giant gash in the galaxy.
It's literally a jagged tear, like a black hole, only in the shape of a shattered shard of glass.
It looks like just ripping right towards the center of the galaxy there.
Yep.
That's huge.
And
I can't even wrap my head around how big that is. How many people died?
Trillions. Trillions.
Oh, man. Jeez.
Whole systems, which systems can be anywhere from 5 to 500 planets. Like a system is not a real reliable unit of measurement, but it's the unit they use.
So this god was born, and it collects all the souls of these dead elves.
Oh.
Yep.
And so the Dark Elves try the hardest they can to delay this by continuing to satiate their pleasures. They continue to torture, and
it physically sustains their souls.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the Eldar who ran off, they start pocketing their souls into little crystals, and they have this and they can pilot Gundam ships with those.
So you can
you could pilot the ship with their soul.
Don't they? That's Wraith not what they use. That
bones.
And I believe they're actually also used in their Titans as well.
That's basically.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Whoa.
So
are they like the ones piloting it, like the soul, or is it just a power source?
It's a dead. Well, the
So the way I understand it, and again,
I don't think it's a power source. I think it's just
so
the consciousness is piloting.
Yeah, so you know how in the Imperium they have this thing that's called the machine spirit, and what the machine spirit is kind of like the mechanical personality of the machine itself. And everybody kind of like, listen, guys, you know what I mean. Like if you've ever had a temperamental car where you've like sweet talking it and then it comes up to life, or if you've ever had a computer where for absolutely no reason at all, you slap the shit out of it and it decides to start working, even though that should not.
The family toaster still works as long as it has a card under one.
Right. Yeah. We've all had things like this. And it's a lot more technical than that, but that's like how I kind of view it. They refer to this as the machine spirit. Well, that for the Eldar Titans is the crystals, and so the pilot is working in tandem. And I believe, I could be wrong on this, but I believe that the pilot of the Titan is the same family as the crystals being used to power it. So it's kind of like you're working in tandem with your ancestors to power this Titan.
Right.
I think.
I believe that is correct.
Cool.
I was going to say, don't quote me on that because I am
done
not.
Our Eldar
I am not
research
so
yet.
up on the Eldar, but I think that's how that works.
Episode forthcoming.
Yeah, right. Stay tuned. So, but anytime an Eldar dies and their soul doesn't go to one of these, it instantly goes to Slaanesh.
Oh.
There's no happy ending for them.
Oh.
As is the price they pay for birthing the goddamn thing.
I see. So, and do they want that? They want that.
No.
Right? They don't want that. They don't want to go to Slaanesh.
Slaanesh is like if Hellraiser had a god.
But isn't that kind of like what they're after at this point? Like the extremes of...
No,
But it's going to be for the gods' pleasure, not theirs.
Not theirs. And that's the thing for the Dark Eldar. The Dark Eldar, they exist in the extremes.
Right.
But the regular Eldar do not.
Oh, I see.
There are two factions.
Yeah. Right.
They try to tamp down on their focus.
Right. They were the ones that basically, when this was all going down, they were the ones that were outside the house with the signs that say the end is nigh. And then they decided to GTFO before it all went to shit.
Whoa. Okay.
And they're like, we want no part of this.
Right.
So that's the Eldar that we're dealing with in the 41st millennium.
Gotcha. Okay.
42nd millennium at this point.
Right.
But so
big galaxy tear happens.
Big galaxy tear. But what that also does is it clears the warp for travel. All that built up pressure. Like a bottle popping its cork.
Okay.
Slaanesh is born, not in our reality, but confined to the warp. No, as far as I know, no Chaos God has actually ever traversed from the warp to our reality.
Oh, okay.
Aspects of them have, which are the greater demons, which are basically like, kind of like the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. The greater demons are kind of like that
they're the avatar
for the Chaos Gods, at least for Nurgle.
Right.
I don't know if that's true for the others, but Nurgle, the great unclean ones, are like basically they're Nurgle. He's just playing a different name.
Well, there's all this politics and stuff going on in the warp. Gods are stealing each other's essences and becoming,
That's what's so cool. See, the warp in any other universe, the warp would just be like in Star Wars when they go into light speed, it's just these stars. In Star Trek, when they go into warp speed, there's nothing there. It's just it's
blurry stars.
They even say like they slip into a dimension, but there's nothing in that dimension.
It's like if you had to play like a game of Frogger every time you wanted to fast travel in video games.
Right. But in the 41st millennium, in Warhammer 40K, just the dimension they use to travel is its own kingdoms full of gods and monsters that have its own politics.
So cool. Goddamn.
And like that. And so that's what we're talking about.
Okay. So somebody in the wing, after all this psychic chaos kind of got blown away, set off his master plan.
Who?
Our big guy.
Yes,
our friend, your friend, and mine.
Oh my God! Do not approach him in such
the Emperor of Mankind.
Dude, this is not a sport. I am
the Big E himself.
Ben is like, show some more propriety.
Oh my God. There is never, and I mean never, a fucking Inquisitor when you need one. Not once.
Are we doing a heresy?
Well, so during this entire Golden Age of Mankind, the Dark Age that came after,
there is a man
before in our own time, and into our prehistory.
There is a man on Earth who we don't know his name whatsoever. We know that he was born in so let's just get one thing out of it because I'm going to keep saying we know. We know jack fucking shit is what we know. Everything we're about to tell you is with a big old helping dose of we think. None of it. The fact of the matter is, and anybody who tells you any different is just flat out lying to you. I don't care who they are. Nobody knows for sure the origins and who the Emperor is. That's just fact.
It is said.
It is said is another word for I think. Like, but the best information we have is that he was born somewhere around 7000 BC.
Oh, damn. What's going on?
How? We're not sure. There are a couple of explanations.
Yeah, it is said the wisest and greatest shamans of the age all joined together and combined their psychic essence to birth the perfect being.
Yeah, so there is a gentleman that I listen to. His name is Luton. I'm sure if there's other 40K fans out there that listen to YouTube, you know who he is. he illustrated some problems with this theory, and I absolutely have to agree. And it didn't seem to, I couldn't figure out why, but it didn't seem to match either, because we're kind of given the impressions that psychers got more powerful as mankind went on. So if these psychers were like in the primary early ages of mankind, they'd have to be some pretty weak motherfuckers. So how many shaman are we talking about? Hundreds, millions, billions? Like what?
I don't know. I mean, hang on, I might have some sort of like population here because I have that kind of 7,000 BC pulled up.
Okay.
Where's population at over here? Because I was interested. It's like, what's going on around there? Cavemen.
I'm sure the global population's under 1 million at that point.
I would think.
Yeah.
It's not really discussed.
I don't think they know.
Yeah, but I need some sort of speculation.
And then also
around 100 million. Okay.
Wow, really?
Sort of.
No, it says, perhaps 10 million people worldwide.
Yeah.
Wow, 10 million?
Where's 10 million?
At the end of that, the world population is believed to have been stable and slowly increasing. It is estimated that there was perhaps 10 million people worldwide.
Damn.
At the end of this millennium.
Okay. Holy crap.
So we talking,
holy crap. That's so weird.
So, there is the potential there for being that many shaman to do it, I guess. 1 for every million?
I guess so. Yeah.
And I think it might be they are weak, but if they perform whatever this ritual is, they create something strong.
Okay, but here's my thing is, if they're so weak, how in the hell did they coalesce their essences inside the warp? Like, we've never seen any psychers powerful enough to do that kind of shit before.
Besides the Emperor.
No, even he hasn't.
He can manifest himself.
He can, but we've never seen him capable of combining souls into one soul in the warp. We've never seen anything like that. So I just have real kind of issues with this.
Yeah, so you're not a believer in the shaman theory here.
I'm not.
Okay.
Well, I think it's possible, but it's
possible, but not likely compared to some other theories. Is where you're standing.
So I think one of the two likely ones. I like Luton's theory, which is that the last old one had this premonition that something bad was going to happen, and so he genetically modified what would be the Emperor to help lead mankind. There's also the theory that the Emperor was the last great old one. Some people dismiss that, but I don't like their reasonings. The reasonings is, at least the ones that I've heard from not just Luton, but from a couple other people, is that like the great old ones weren't like that. They weren't xenophobic. They weren't war rating. They were creators of life and light and darkness and so on and so forth.
If one wanted to hide out and like, yeah, I can see that.
But my thing is like, okay, the great old ones were life givers and they didn't like waging war. But this is the last one that watched his entire race get genocided. And I would like to point out the Xenos that the Emperor is so hostile to are some of the ones that betrayed the great old ones and just left them to die. The Eldar and the Orcs. So to me, it makes perfect sense that a great old one would be like, nope, I'm going to come back as this and I'm going to try to just massacre the fuck out of you guys. I'm not, but ultimately, we don't know.
Right.
But what we do know is it created a being of ridiculously powerful psychic abilities.
Yes.
And on the charred ashes of Earth in the Age of Strife, he began his plan.
Yep. So all throughout the history of mankind, the Emperor stayed in the background, and he had a lab in the Himalayas because this guy's just,
as you do.
He's.
Genius level, all powerful.
So, you know what I wonder about the Emperor at this time? Not to devolve on a tangent, because we're gonna have to do an episode on the Emperor himself.
We are. Isn't that our next episode?
That I can't decide if that's going to be the next. Yeah, that is going to be the next episode. You are correct.
Okay.
Yes, the Emperor will be the next episode. But the Emperor is anti-Xenos, and he's also anti-theocracy. Right? He doesn't like religion. My question is: do you think the Emperor was born atheistic, or do you think he started off? And through his existing throughout time and history, over time, he saw the damage and destruction that religion can cause. And this is not my statement on religion as itself.
It's
this is
from
theory
on his stance.
It's the Emperor's stance that through all the suffering and things, just over his existence, he's like, no, this has got to go.
So I'll say this, kind of looking at our own history with religion and then looking into the future thousands of years and seeing how things turned out. I would go with the theory that he saw some damaging effects within this universe involving religion and said, you know what? We're not dealing with any of that anymore.
Not to tap dance around the elephant, but like nobody can deny that in this world, religion has caused some crazy suffering.
Right.
And while that is not the point of religion,
right?
It certainly is a side
unintended
effect.
Consequence that we're seeing from that, and we see that from other things too. But
absolutely.
But in the grimdark, it certainly looks like religion didn't pan out for them. So kind of just within the parameters of this world, I could definitely see it. As things become so extreme within this universe, like compared to our own, of course, everything's turned up to an 11. So, and I'll bet he looked at his as things went along, he was like, yeah, we're not going to do this.
And the reason, and I can't go ahead, Dan.
Well, I wonder if he's being pragmatic and practical from like a warp standpoint. Logic and reason don't feed the beast kind of stuff. I think his goal was to starve the warp and kill off these psychic entities by denying them their existence.
Right. Okay. So I think it was definitely his motivation later on, but I just wondering, in his early development, how he arrived.
Gotcha.
Because there had to be a point in time where he didn't know about the warp, right? Or at least he did. So perhaps. I found a statement. I'm not sure how true it is. That basically the best recollection we have is that the Chaos Gods were born somewhere around the medieval times in human history.
Okay.
So there had to be a point in time early on, supposing that's true.
Right.
I don't know that it is, but we're going to suppose that's true just for this conversation. There had to be a point in time where the Emperor didn't know about the warp or, what could happen with it. And I'm just wondering if he developed that dislike of religion just off of what he witnessed, or whether it was something hard-grained inside of him. That he was so intelligent that he just went the science route from the get.
Interesting.
And the reason why I wonder that, guys, there is a Primarch, and I think I covered the Primarch in episode 0, and his name is Logar. Logar basically falls to religion, is fair to say.
Yeah.
And despite it being kind of a slow descent with a lot of warning, the Emperor never takes this problem seriously. Or at least, not that he doesn't take it seriously, but he doesn't come down on him like he does, when he dislikes religion. Like when he sees religion, he doesn't come down on him like he does other things.
I feel like he really makes the wrong move when there's a point where he's like, don't worship me like a god. I'll force all of you to bow to me simultaneously with my psychic might.
Well, that was when he was at his wit's end. But when he first met Logar, right? When he first met Logar on Monarchia, I think it was, apparently the party that Logar threw for the Emperor lasted a while, and there was even some worship there. The Emperor didn't abolish it or didn't freak out, but he did say he was uncomfortable with it. And the reason why I wonder about his early time in developing a dislike for religion, because I wonder if the reason why he didn't come down on Logar so hard is because he recognized in Logar that same kind of, I had a point in time in my life, the Emperor, where I was actually okay with religion until I saw the damage it did. And I didn't understand at that time. And this is my son, Logar, and he's going through the same thing. He's kind of got this, that's why he didn't come down on him.
Okay. I think it's that whole, father-son thing.
Yes.
It's the tragedy of knowing how beneficial spirituality can be for the individual, but the problem of transmitting it to other people. Religion,
yeah. So I think, and I think there's a real case to be made there that had Logar kept his religious beliefs just confined to himself and his own sons, perhaps the Emperor would have just sidestepped it entirely and just, for the sake of a son, let it go.
Right.
Is that hypocritical? Sure, people are hypocritical with their kids all the time.
The word, they were the word bearers.
They called themselves the bearers of the word, but yes, the word bearers.
They took too long. They would conquer planets, and they would set up churches and get real into their indoctrination stuff. And Big E's like, no, we got a timetable, we got a schedule. We need to move on to the next one.
What's taking so long?
So to jump back. The Age of Strife has happened. Mankind is literally in a Mad Max zone, right? It's sand. It's these, they call them techno barbarians. Guys, that's exactly what it sounds like. It was these big slobbering, please don't put things in places that I don't want them to be. And that could be a sexual thing or a non-sexual thing. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. So the Emperor is like, well, I've been waiting in the wings, watching humanity for a long time, and this has just fucking gone on far enough. And he decides that he is going to take over mankind, and because mankind has done such a poor job of it, he's going to do it by blunt force trauma. And that's what the Unification War was.
And a war it was. He basically took over because they were more or less kind of Mad Max biker gangs and shit like that.
Although there were some kingdoms that were able to mount
irradiated wastelands with warlords.
Yeah, but there were some big warlords there that were able to mount at least a decent fight.
Right.
But he had these genetically engineered, just brood of soldiers called the Thunder Warriors. And he just marched across Earth and he said, you have a choice. You can bow to me or you can be destroyed. And those who did. Those who didn't were.
And he took back Terra.
Also, Earth. And that's what is the official founding of what could be called the Imperium, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Which would really, really piss off some Martians. The Mechanicum is its own thing, and they are integral to the Imperium of Man. Well, they feel like they don't get the respect they deserve.
Well, so because they kept going, their technology was able to keep going, like during that whole.
They were doing much
the warp
better.
Was cut
so
off.
Yes,
yeah.
So when mankind was collapsing, Mars had really become a technological wonder. It was like the planet where you develop technology,
right?
And because they were so far advanced, even compared to the rest of the really, really advanced humans, they were able to weather what was called the Age of Strife with some degree of security,
right?
They lost a lot of their, they called them Forge Worlds, or they would call them later. They lost a lot of their outposts.
I imagine they called them.
Well, they during the Age of Strife, they were the ones still sending out ships and trying to make contact.
Right.
They were still somewhat an interstellar civilization.
Yep.
They were still operating sub warp though, but
they were.
But
because
they were still trucking along
because they got
period of time.
So the denizens of Mars got really hyper into replacing their parts with machine parts, and we'll get into it's for religious reasons, sort of. So cool. It's sort of
while things were falling apart, a religious cult based around machinery and technology is what won out on Mars.
Yeah,
they needed to band together. The basically, I think it was the technicians were the ones keeping everything running.
Okay.
So they kept the lights on.
And I think they actually ended up being called techno priests by the time this was done. Just to give you an idea of what happened, they became so integral to the society that they became a religion. Like you worship them with religious.
It's just like Asimov's Foundation series.
Asimov's Foundation series.
Exactly.
They use that exact same thing where people use technology with a religious bent to help push.
Well, I mean, so it's kind of that thing like, technology sufficiently far enough ahead could be mistaken for magic, which could be mistaken for divinity.
Right.
There's also this is BattleTech talk.
Okay.
There's a Comstar. It's basically a telecommunications corporation under the guise of a religious cult.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, that's interesting. I've never heard, you would always expect it the other way around, the cult going to a business. I've never heard it the other way around. How bad does your business have to be? You're like, you know what? We need to be more publicly acceptable. Can we dress ourselves up as a cult, please?
Can I say Scientology did it first? Does that count?
Yeah. So Mars went to Earth during this techno-barbarian times. They said, no, we're not going to bother.
And you know what? That is why they have absolutely no reason to be salty about the Emperor, because they went down there and they're like, this is all done. There's nothing to see here.
They could have stepped in and brought him back to a bit more of a
they didn't think it was worth it.
Wow. They're just like, fuck that. I mean, at the same time, though, I guess I might look at a mess like that where it's like, what is there even here for us?
I don't blame them for making the call. I'm saying don't get salty at the Emperor for coming in and fixing something that you said couldn't be fixed. That's all I'm saying. But in that direction, he was willing to do things that the Mechanicum wasn't. I would say is probably why.
Well, he made those Thunder Warriors and he got rid of them when they weren't useful. Oh man, I can't. We're gonna have to have you back for the episode of the Emperor. I have so much
there's a lot of things about the Emperor that are paint him in a negative light, but I'm very sympathetic towards. Like, what would you
respect? What else?
What would you do with them? Like, they're not, like, the Thunder Warriors are not like soldiers like what we think of them. These guys were like, had nothing in their brain but like stomp boot on face. Like, these guys, it wasn't like when they invaded a town, it wasn't like they came in, they pointed their guns at you and you surrendered. Like, once it was on, it didn't matter if you were a baby being held by their mom or if you were an active combatant. They would push you to the ground and just stomp you under their boot.
They were unstable mentally and they were unstable genetically.
Yeah, and they were like in the neighborhood of like 8 to 9 feet tall apiece. Like, these were not like, and they were dumb. Even the smartest ones were slightly above Forrest Gump level. These were so like everybody's like, oh, he betrayed him. Like, betrayed him. They were barely useful beyond the battlefield. What would you do with them?
It's kind of like what's that? Is it Of Mice and Men?
Yeah, like Lenny.
Not fit to reconquer the galaxy. He needs something.
Right.
But also,
he needed something that a little more of a diplomatic bent.
Let me offer this though as a secondary theory to the Thunder Warriors thing.
Okay.
We know for a fact that the Thunder Warriors knew about the Astartes program, the Space Marines. We know that they knew.
Okay.
So they knew they were being replaced.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And the only account that I have found that paints that picture of them being betrayed at the battle was from a surviving Thunder Warrior who is not a reliable source. So is it possible that the brutish, thuggish Thunder Warriors got together, we're all talking about the Astartes program, and we're like, we will not be replaced?
Oh. Well, I don't know. I hadn't thought of that.
I'm just saying it could have been.
Fits with the mindset that you're painting them.
It could have been. Well, they were. There's no arguing that they were brutes.
Brutes. They want to fight.
Yeah.
They like.
Does anybody think the Thunder Warriors accepted that news with grace and dignity?
No, and you know what? That would fit with a lot of because in a lot of real world mythology and stuff, there's like a first, race of deities and a second generation. And I guess I should say generations. They're usually generations. And like the first one's usually the really big, brutish or primal thing. And then oftentimes they know that the second generation is going to usurp them. So they instigate their own demise by attacking the second generation first.
Right.
So I'm saying it kind of has some precedent in
I'm just saying
existing
it's possible that
myth.
Big E did nothing wrong.
Oh, okay. So this is a controversial topic.
Oh, it's
dragged us into, isn't it? Oh,
everything about the Emperor is controversial.
Just bear in mind, listeners, that I am a student of this lore alongside many of you.
I come biased as all fuck with British.
I may say some heretical or ignorant things without intending to. Forgive me.
Nah.
Oh God.
What do you think, Dan? Think that explanation has any merit? He's like, nah. Yeah.
I've seen some lore where there's like one surviving Thunder Warrior,
right?
And he's like a gang lord. So they might have some cunning. I don't think you should bash them as completely.
Well, yeah,
complete dullards.
Okay,
but
no,
but they had no longer served a purpose, and they need to be getting. So I understand the Emperor's plans on that.
So he thinks the Emperor did off him on, So
yeah. But we actually talked about the Thunder Warriors earlier today before we recorded this. What I pointed out to Eric was the Thunder Warrior that had cunning and smarts and kind of became a gang lord and stuff. He had hundreds of years to develop that intelligence that the other ones didn't have. And in his own speech, he said, "I am unique amongst my brothers. I was not like most of them." So I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably the most likely explanation is that the Emperor slaughtered him because they just weren't useful anymore. They couldn't be used for anything.
I think he built something to help him conquer Earth, and now he needed to build something to help him conquer the rest of the galaxy.
But I am willing to entertain the notion that the Thunder Warriors flipped out because they were being replaced and attacked.
Yeah, that's a take I hadn't really considered before or even really heard. See.
Oh, it's pure Imperial propaganda.
I'm sure there's a part where it's like, okay, we helped you conquer the planet. Where's our
Yeah, because the Thunder Warriors, before they were genetically manipulated, were some of the techno-barbarians that decided to side with the Emperor. So it's not like they were great people to start with.
Right.
They probably didn't want to fanatically follow him on a crusade across the galaxy.
Not without greasing them palms a little bit, I'm sure.
Right.
He's just like, I cannot put you in charge of anything.
Anything. Yeah. Wow.
So he unifies that.
Yep.
He unifies Terra, and he unleashes his Astartes program, which are the Space Marines, the thing that everybody knows and has seen about 40K.
Right. Yeah. Like anybody who even starts to maybe begin to look into this has seen imagery of this or has heard people talk about the Astartes.
Loud guns, big shoulder pads.
Yep. Space Marines.
And the Primarchs.
Oh, yes. And chain swords. I forgot.
I love
the chain swords.
The chain sword, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a chain swords. It's a chainsaw sword.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Wonderful.
Tasty.
Messy.
I love it. So this launches into the Great Crusade, where basically the Emperor takes his Space Marines and goes out forth into the universe to reconquer the planets one at a time and rediscover the Primarchs, his sons, who were meant to be the generals of his army, but who were captured by the forces of chaos and scattered amongst the universe.
And so these two purposes kind of coincided. He was going to go out, find his children,
sons,
and reunify the scattered colonies and forces of mankind.
Oh God, I can't wait. This is gonna be terrible. This is why the Emperor episode is number 2. Dan, do you think the Emperor loved his Primarchs? Loved them as sons.
As sons. Ooh.
Yeah. Like he referred to them as sons. So, but do you think he actually believed they were his sons, or do you?
I don't think he loved his Primarch sons any more or less than he loved the rest of his children.
Oh,
all of humanity.
Oh, that is such a fancy answer, you son of a bitch. Whoa.
Well done.
Now listen, I'm thinking about changing your nickname to Twinkle Toes because that was some fine line walking you pulled off there. Bravo. Woo! Can smell that bullshit from down the street.
So this is another pretty controversial topic among the fandom.
It is, yeah.
So whether or not the Emperor is cold and calculated and these Primarchs are just instruments in his plan, or does he truly look at them like children and he wants them to inherit this Imperium from him eventually, or help him to lead it and guide humanity?
Right. And I myself think it's a mix of both, because I think people lose sight of one key fact about the Emperor. At the end of the day, all things said, he is in fact human with all the same flaws, emotions, thinkings, traps of thinkings that we all suffer from.
Yes.
In my example, and Eric has heard me, this is a hill I'll die on. If somebody can explain this to me, then I will come off of it. But until that day, this is my whole thing about why I believe that the Emperor actually did love his Primarchs more than other people and actually saw them as legitimate sons. If he did not, why in the hell would he take that much damage from Horus, the end of the Horus Heresy? There is no reason for him to get clobbered by him when we know for a fact he could lay him out in a second, but doesn't.
Because it was brutal. It was dismemberment.
He let Horus rip his arm off, burn the side of his face down to the bone. He literally let Horus pick him up and break his skeleton.
This kind of supports your argument, but this is like a controversy, conspiracy theory where Sanguinius killed Horus, then suffered the Black Rage. And it was the Emperor who had to kill Sanguinius, and he just didn't want to do it.
Oh my God, I've never heard that before.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, that doesn't...
But it still supports the fact he didn't want to put down his son. Either one. He didn't want to kill his son.
It does.
Yeah.
But how did...
crazy.
See, that... I know. Because there's Sanguinius never suffered the Black Rage. Because, you couldn't have the Black Rage without Sanguinius dying, because the whole Black Rage is him having that...
It would have been maybe the Red Thirst transforming into the Black Rage.
See, no. Now you're...
Who was there to witness it? Because
that one Lode Guardman who took a shot
I think he was so we don't know if he was a guardsman or a custodes or
so there was like one guy there to witness
so
this shit?
so basically the way I've heard it go down is that when after Horus had just absolutely beaten the hell out of the Emperor and the Emperor's looking up at him and trying to decide what to do about his son, a lone figure, whether it was a guardsman, whether it was one of his custodes, I actually think it was a custodes because we know for a fact that the Emperor was very emotional when a custodes died. Anytime a custodes died, he had his name emblazoned on the Emperor's armor. So whoever it was, this lone soldier just threw himself at Horus to a last attempt to stave off the Emperor, and Horus just basically grabbed one half of him and just like ripped him in half and just threw him to the side.
Oh my God.
And it was that act of cruelty that the Emperor's like, no more.
No kidding. Wow. So that does speak a lot to the Emperor.
Yes,
people.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you have these things, how can you say that the Emperor was just treated them like weapons?
Yeah.
Like, they were weapons. There's no doubt about it. And you use soldiers as weapons. That's what they're for.
Right. Well, and there's that kind of, as a leader, you have to make those kind of tough calls and you have to really harden yourself and be able to make sacrifices that aren't your sacrifices. They're the people under you making those sacrifices for you, right? Like, that's all over the place in, like,
that's just the reality.
That's the call to arms right there. That's what you're doing.
That's the classic picture.
It's Horus standing over Sanguinius with the Emperor.
Horus standing over Sanguinius with the Emperor.
It's a pretty well-known photo.
Yeah, I think that's one of the earliest depictions of that scene.
Okay. In the throne room.
That's
aboard the Vengeful
Spirit. That's
the Vengeful Spirit.
That's at the end. That's when. Yeah. So we're going. Let's get there. So the Great Crusade. The Great Crusade is this culmination of the Emperor's entire grand plan. He's sweeping throughout the galaxy, discovering his Primarchs as he's going along. Right. And each time he discovers a Primarch, the Primarch then becomes in charge of their chapter of Astartes. Their Legion. Legion. It's a Legion at this point. It's not a chapter. Chapters are much later. But it's a Legion. And they are, whereas the Primarchs are clones of the Emperor, sort of. They are from his genetic material. And I actually really like the theory that they are like, say the Emperor is a bar of white light. The Primarchs are what that light is when you shove it through a prism.
Okay, right. The different colors that make up.
Focused, different aspects of his personality.
Distilled down into a single being.
To accomplish certain goals.
Okay, yes. Right.
And the Astartes are to them what they are to him. Basically.
Because as they found the Primarchs, didn't they start using their genetic material to develop the Astartes?
He had the Primarchs.
He already had stock.
Once they had gestated into like basically baby form, he then used that genetics to start making the Astartes so that the Astartes would be ready by the time the Primarchs were.
Okay.
So there was a point in time where it was the Emperor himself and the Custodes leading all the different legions of Astartes.
Okay.
Yeah, there is one specific case where finding the Primarch did help them with genetic materials.
Okay.
The Emperor's children.
There's actually two.
Two, though.
Sanguinius's The Red Thirst was actually quelled pretty well by his.
Yeah, because they didn't know. Well, the start of their I don't want to call it cult, but the ritualistic practices of blood drinking is what helped them figure that out.
Wow.
Because Sanguinius was familiar with that hunger.
Yes.
Okay.
And then with the Emperor's children, they had super cancer.
Yep. It would mutate them into these grotesque, like blobby forms of claws and teeth.
So they couldn't replenish their forces. They were almost being wiped out.
That was called the flesh change.
No. The flesh change is. I thought that was the dust thing. That's the Thousand Sons.
Huh.
That is the Thousand Sons.
Yeah, we're talking about Emperor's children.
Oh, Emperor's children. That's right. Damn it.
Okay, so there are 20 Primarchs. Two have been
exercised from complete record.
Right.
And I'm sure that was originally so players could make their own Primarchs.
It was.
Now that's kind of considered taboo. I don't think you can really just show up to a table like, this is my...
I've heard that too.
This is my homebrew Primarch.
In the game, in the game community, the model community, whatever. They tend to...
the thing is...
Sneer at it.
I wouldn't sneer at it so long as, like... It has to be vetted, man, because people can come up with some crazy shit. Like, you have to be really careful about creating your own chapters, your own stuff, because the lore of this stuff is so complicated. You can fuck it up real easy.
Yeah. So yeah, they left a little bit of wiggle room, so they created 2 chapters probably.
Although it's interesting, Malcador the Sigilite, who is basically the Emperor's second in command. He's this old man with really powerful psychic powers. There is a picture of him. I'm sure you've seen it. He's sitting on a throne, and in one hand he's got this flaming staff, and in the other hand he's got like a hologram that's showing the letter I for the Inquisition. And on his throne are 2 metallic skulls that have the numbers of the missing legions on them.
Okay.
Now, they're not big enough to actually be the skulls of Primarchs, so they're not literally their skulls, but there is some strong...
Got their numbers.
Yep.
And Malcador runs the Grey Knights, right?
No, so the Grey Knights didn't happen around the time that Malcador was around. So the Great Crusade happens, and then the biggest thing to happen after that is the Horus Heresy. Now, Horus is a Primarch. He's a Primarch of the Lunar Wolves, later renamed the Sons of Horus once he came into the picture, and they did some really cool stuff and sanguineous stuff.
Because Horus was actually the first one he found, wasn't he?
He was. First Primarch
what
found.
Makes that the most tragic at the end there.
Fuck him. He was always a manipulative dick.
Was he really?
Yeah, I think so. He wasn't as bad. The only Primarch I legitimately dislike is Mortarion. He's such a whiny. He is such a whiny bitch.
Oh no.
Horus is bodybuilder Lex Luthor in my mind.
Yes, he is.
Right. He looks like him. Yeah.
Like, my thing with Mortarion's whole thing is he had a huge chip on his shoulder from the get-go, because he was super convinced beyond any doubt that all the Primarchs land on random planets. Some are good, some are horrible, and it's just luck of the draw, man. Like life is.
Yeah. And they have a pretty significant influence on the Primarchs.
They become the conquerors of that planet, almost without exception. Almost. But like, Mortarion is just convinced that of all of the Primarchs, he had the worst upbringing, the most unjust upbringing. And listen, it's not that he didn't have a shit upbringing. That's not what I'm saying. But Conrad Kurz, though, like, it literally broke him mentally.
I would say Conrad, Angron.
Right? Like, good God, man, come off of it. Like, there are, like, a lot of your brothers have suffered in really horrific ways.
Yeah.
So that's my little rant about Matari.
But was he?
But I love the Death Guard
himself, or was he kind of like?
No, woe is me.
Oh, look at what we did.
No,
you put these guys through too.
No.
Well, I could back him up a little bit more.
No.
So we're talking about this event kind of at the end of the Great Crusade.
The Horus Heresy.
Yeah. Horus is named War Master. He is corrupted into chaos by Lorgar and
by the Word Bearers,
and some other shenanery.
Yep. Actually, it was Erebus. So there is a really popular hashtag. It's called #BlameIt on Logar. That's not fair. Logar. I told Eric this earlier. I said I have a kind of a soft spot for Logar because he legitimately thought down to his core he was doing the right thing. Erebus is the one. So Erebus was his like second or third in command, depending on who you ask. If you ask Corferon, who is like Erebus's dad, he's like, I'm second in command, and Erebus is like, you're a punk. Like, they constantly fight over that. Who's got Logar's nuts on their forehead?
Yeah. Who's number 2?
So Lorgar, literally like a golden child. He's got gold tinged skin.
Yep.
On a planet that is very religious.
Right.
And these two, his adopted father and his mentor,
like his high priest.
Yeah, we're always trying to manipulate him into being their messiah figure.
But Erebus and Corferon, both of them, they fell way before Logar did.
Oh, okay.
And then they just started.
Well, their whole planet had a bunch of they had four gods that they worshipped.
Yeah, the planet that Logar landed on already worshipped chaos when he landed there.
Oh, no kidding.
And then he converted them to the imperial religion that he believed in, but underlying was always there.
Still fed into chaos.
Hilarious. Emperor hates religion. Lorgar tries to create this imperial religion. And he's considered a traitor, but he wrote the book that they still use to this day.
Yeah,
no kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote.
So this church that runs the Imperium, called the Ecclesiarchy, in the 40th millennium.
Right.
their Bible is called the Latitio Divinitatis. Latitio Divinitatis. Yeah.
High Gothic.
High Gothic.
Hoorah! Or as a lot of people actually kind of shit on it, and they're like, that's hipster speech. I'm like, because there was the Imperial Guard, and then they turned it into the Astro Militarum.
Right.
So it depends on if you want to sound like a working class man or whether you want to sound like a highfalutin.
Which is super cool about high and low Gothic in the Imperium anyway, because it's
So
the book of
the Latitio Divinitatis was written by Logar originally,
and it's still what's used.
It's what the ecclesiarchy use as their Bible.
Oh man!
And it was recently discovered that there are 2 or 3 word-bearer Marines that are in the upper echelons of the ecclesiarchy hidden.
What? No kidding.
But they claim to be loyalists. So It's fine.
Sure. Totally fine. No further questions.
Your Honor. I know. It's like...
Yeah.
So, dude.
Oh my God.
I think, in my opinion, the ecclesiarchy are the main bad guys of the 40K universe.
So Horus has been corrupted.
He's been
named War Master.
Yep, he's second in command in all things war, for the exception of the Emperor.
Because the Emperor wants to sequester himself back in the Himalayas for his next big project.
Oh,
which is a huge secret to everybody but us, the viewer.
Right.
He's trying to build his own webway for mankind.
Okay.
And Horus gets corrupted by chaos and launches into this Horus Heresy, which is basically a civil war between 7 of the legions and 7, or is it 8? How many loyalists are there?
I think it's equal numbers.
Is it 7 and 7?
I think it is. Well, there's 20, take away 2, there's 18. 18 divided by 9. Is it 9 and 9? There's that one really nice portrait of the Emperor and all of his Primarchs, and it's divided up. It's 9 and 9 because it's 3 rows each.
Okay, so there's 9 loyalists and 9 traitors.
Yep.
Okay.
So basically, it splits the Imperium right down the middle.
Yeah, they're essentially cut in half.
What's funny about it is, like, we have what we call the sacred timeline up. You know what the great thing is about our sacred timeline is? It doesn't fundamentally destroy your universe. Eat a dick, Marvel.
Oh,
so ours actually shows we have it all the way from M30 to M42, and I mean, like, that's a long timeline. And when you look at the Horus Heresy, I think it's fair to say there's no event that affects the Imperium as hard as the Horus Heresy. I just don't think there is.
Right.
From the ideal perspective of like what the Emperor wants to what happens, yes.
Yeah.
There are other things that keep moving things along in weird ways, but yeah.
Right.
But I think that is the thing that just fucking collapsed everything.
Just offset, yeah.
And it only lasted 7 years.
Right. It's such a short span of time compared to
every other thing.
Yeah. All these other events that we're talking about, like this schism in the, and shutting down the warp and stuff, like that's all.
I mean, the
thousands
Crusade
of years. And the
Crusade
a decade?
What was it?
Was the Great Crusade itself a decade?
Yeah. It was a millennium. It was M30 to M31.
It was a full millennium. Yeah.
It was a full millennium.
And the heresy was
7 years. Yeah. Took 7 years. It took 100 years to build something, and then
just
7 years to destroy it.
Yeah.
Which left two Primarchs.
Yeah.
2 Primarchs dead. 1 Primarch. Left 1 Primarch dead because Conrad technically died after the heresy. Left 1 Primarch dead.
Well, 2 because
2 Sanguinius. Fuck, man. The Loyalists lost 2. They lost Ferrus Manus and they lost Sanguinius.
Yeah. Devastating. It was devastating is an understatement.
Should we maybe go ahead and maybe list the chapter or the legions, and maybe their Primarchs?
I mean, we can. I'm cool with that. So we have the Iron Hands, Loyalist Legion, the Iron Hands. Their Primarch is Ferrus Manus. Ferrus Manus. Their whole thing was it's technology. They're very machine based for a Space Marine chapter. They have big robotic things attached to their armor. They like I don't know, things like they actually have a high. I think they actually have the most amount of tech marines, right, that work alongside the Mechanicum.
Tech marines, and they'll do bionic implants. You'll see guys with like robot eyes or robot hands.
Yeah. Okay. So they're all about replacing the flesh, which is actually funny because Ferrus Manus wanted the direct opposite.
Is that right?
Yeah, it comes from their worship of that kind of replacement. Is Ferrus Manus, when he was on his planet, he suffered an accident that covered his hands and forearms in this liquid metal. And so he had metallic hands, but they still functioned regularly. And so his sons kind of took that and were like, well, we need to replace ourselves with machine parts.
And he's like, that's not what I...
Right.
Interesting.
There are the Salamanders. I love the Salamanders.
You're all about the Salamanders.
I do love the Salamanders. Yep. The Salamanders are like the knights in shine. They are the good guys of the 41st millennium. Yeah.
They really like burning Xenos with flamethrowers.
I don't give a fuck. It's fine. It's great. It's good. Purifies. Smell the roasting meat. Reminds you of dinner.
They are the good boys.
They are, yes.
They love hugs.
Yeah, but they'll also stand their ground to save, just like one village.
Their entire motif as Space Marines is green dragons, and fire.
Yeah.
And their whole thing is they are a defensive unit. They defend, and they will die to the last man defending a village of 10, the same as they will as a hive city of 1 billion.
Wow.
They give 0 fucks.
They are the paragons.
They are. Like. Their Primarch is Vulcan, the largest and strongest of the Primarchs.
Oh, wow.
He's also a perpetual, who means that he cannot die. Like, at all.
Like, just period.
Never.
Like, even if he's mortally wounded,
That's something we'll come back to later.
Hive cities. We'll visit that concept.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, like there was a case of him being shot off into a sun and atomized, and he reformed in the nearest safe space for his body to do so.
Dear Lord.
Yeah, I think the Emperor's perpetual too, right? It's debatable.
Unknown. So
they won't let him die.
So they can't find out.
A lot of people speculate that because Vulcan is a perpetual, and they're all aspects of the Emperor himself is in fact a perpetual, and were they to let him die, he would be reborn.
To me, that would make the most sense, but I also get why you wouldn't risk that.
Do you risk it?
Yeah. Like, I'm 99% sure, but that's not enough for me to take
Not when you consider the damage that would be done at the death of the Emperor.
I feel like we keep touching on these nuggets that need to be broken into.
Oh, well, trust me, all of these things are going to be covered in other episodes. There's a reason why
we still want to touch on them, and then but we're going to do deep dives.
Out these lores.
Yeah, there's the Raven Guard. The Raven Guard they're your ninjas.
Yeah, sneaky assassins.
They are Space Marine ninjas. That is what they are.
Space Marine ninjas.
And they're also the highest concentration of flyers. They have jetpacks, and they have the most flight troops.
So, fun fact: before they found their Primarch, Corvus Corax,
right?
They were basically strong-armed into the Lunar Wolves. Basically, Horus had free reign of both legions for a while.
Wow.
And, Corvus really had to work to forge their own identity as the Raven Guard instead of just the scouts.
Right.
Send in the scouts.
Oh my gosh, jeez. He just took him over basically.
Oh, and so the Primarch of the Iron Hands, Ferrus Manus, he died. He's dead. He's gone. He's off the map.
Oh,
he got his head cut off during one of the fights in the Horus Heresy.
Oh,
Vulcan is
perpetual,
not dead. He's actually MIA. We have no idea where he is at this particular point in time in current history of 40K. He did leave a message for his sons that said that were they able to collect all 7 relics, that he would return.
Interesting. Okay.
They found 3.
Kind of an Osiris story there.
Yes.
Like collect all the pieces and he comes back to life. Or Dragon Ball. Yeah, get the dragon. Ooh, yeah, that's nice. Parallel.
Corvus Corax, the Primarch of the Raven Guard, is on a personal vendetta against Logar for the Horus Heresy. He believes that he caused it all. And so he basically went off into the warp by himself to enact his own personal revenge.
Oh, Jesus. Like he's going after him?
On his own. Yep.
He's kind of Rambo in it, huh?
Yes.
He's just going in.
And there's some really good lore. There's some really good stories about like Corvus in the warp. He's fucking them right up.
Ooh.
Like I think that if he comes back, people are going to be shocked at the personality change, because like in the Horus Heresy and before that, Corvus was really kind of quiet and withdrawn. He wasn't mean, but he wasn't nice either.
Right.
I think if we see Corvus again, he's going to be a lot different, because like he's like described as this shadow that's just attacking people and erupting them into blood and viscera, and like he's gone off the deep end, as you do.
You do.
And what happened?
Yep.
After that are the Space Wolves, the Volca Fenrica.
Yes. My boys. I love these guys.
Go ahead, get your furry joke out. I know you want to.
You just did it for me.
Sure did.
Yes, space furries.
Space furries. So the Space Wolves are the Emperor's executioners.
Yep.
Their whole thing is they are there to make sure that the other legions stay in line.
Right. Fierce, loyal, boisterous.
Absolutely unrepentant.
Yep. Crude.
And their Primarch is Leman Russ.
I love Leman.
Leman Russ is Thor. I don't know how, like, there's no two ways about it. Leman Russ is Thor.
I know. Yeah,
That's
like,
the way to describe him.
Like,
they seem so Viking based that they're just, and he carries around a great big, is it a hammer?
It's a sword. It's a sword, but it has the same name.
Ah,
Now
really?
It's, Fenris, that's the name of their planet.
Yep.
Which has this whole Viking theme. And
Well, they even refer to the Emperor as the Allfather.
yep.
I love that.
And they have these native super wolves.
Yep, the Fenrisian wolves.
Oh, and they're so
Gary
big
and
so
Freki.
fierce. Yeah.
Is the wolves of Leman Russ.
So they adopted the iconography and the pups themselves.
Yeah.
And
I
that
love
is what I think is one of the really cool things about the Space Marines is they all have a completely different aesthetic to them.
Right. And that kind of touches back to what you were talking about earlier about like there's something for everybody in this.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Do you like Norse mythology? There's your Space Wolves. Have at it, sons. Do you like ninjas? There's your Raven Guard. Do you like your knights in shining armor fighting dragons? There's your Salamanders. Do you like guys that like stuff? That's your Iron Hands.
Yeah, that like stuff.
I'm not gonna lie. I find the Iron Hands so incredibly boring.
Really? So yeah.
I don't dislike them. They're really milquetoast.
Kind of lacking some character.
I think so.
If somebody's like, "Hey, what's the chapter with the hand?"
Yeah,
They're
right.
the first names are going to be Iron Hand. It's going to be Imperial Fists.
Imperial Fists. The Imperial Fists have the same thing, have the same symbol, but in my opinion, they are a lot cooler
and a lot harder to paint.
Are they?
Is that right?
Yellow is notoriously hard to paint.
Is that right?
I will never
interesting.
be. I have no interest in building an Imperial Fists army, although I like the Imperial Fists. You guys hear me say I like almost even the things that I'm like they're stupid. I still like it.
Right.
The universe by itself is amazing. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't.
Yeah.
Next up is the
Ultramarines.
Shut up.
They are.
Next up is the Blueberries.
Tell us about the Ultramarines.
The poster boys. They have a very Greco-Roman thing going on.
Okay. Yep.
It was in Matt Ward. There was one writer for GW who took his personal favorite army and made them the Mary Sues of the entire universe.
Right. So the Ultramarines are supposed to be, and I like them as this, they're supposed to be the jack of all trades, master of none. They're good at a little bit of everything. They come up with side plans for everything.
Yeah.
They have strategies for everything, but they're not particularly good at everything. And then this one particular writer, I don't know the full-fledged story of it, but I do know that he's the guy that's responsible for always seeing blue on the front of stuff when it's Warhammer.
I think it's in Matt Ward. Yeah, they're the Ultramarines are real. They have theoreticals and practicals. They're all about kind of they like rules and regulation, but also being able to break them. Like,
okay.
They're hypocrites like Gilliman. We'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
their Primarch is Rabute Gilliman.
Rabute Gilliman,
and he wrote the other book we've talked about.
The other book.
But he wrote the book on being a Space Marine.
Yes, he wrote the literal handbook to how to be a Space Marine.
The Codex Astartes.
The Codex Astartes.
So you have the Codex compliant and the non-compliant chapters.
Yep.
Okay.
There's the ones that do and the ones that tell them to get bent.
But we're still talking legions. So.
Yep.
Right.
And we'll move on.
So after that, we have the Blood Angels, my personal favorite. I love the Blood Angels. They are shock troops. They are sent in through drop pod, is exactly what it sounds like. It's a personal deployment device where they're deployed from the ship in space, crash landing onto the ground. If you guys are Halo fans, ODSTs, it's kind of the same deal, only imagine a Spartan unit like that. The reason why I like the Blood Angels so much, the Blood Angels thing is they have 2 genetic flaws in them that make them incredibly, almost for one of them, uncontrollably violent. They have the red thirst, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is a vampiric craving for blood that overtakes them mostly on the field of battle, but it can happen sometimes just randomly. And then the other one they have is the Black Rage. The Black Rage is a mental condition caused by the death of their Primarch Sanguinius, which we talked about earlier. Right. Horus strangles him to death. When that happened, that created such a psychic backlash in his legion that they literally go berserk. And what it is at any time, at any point, they can be in battle or they can be sitting there eating lunch, and they will just fly into this overwhelmed they can just fly into this rage where they actually flash back to the moment of death of their Primarch. And so they believe they are Sanguinius fighting Horus, and so they just slip into this berserk rage.
I remember you telling me about that delusion. That is just absolutely tragic.
Yep.
And so what happens is, because they have these flaws, they actually work very hard at being the heroes that they need to be.
Oh, I see.
Like they really
on a personal level.
Yes, they try very hard to be what is the example of what a Space Marine should be. Not like the Ultramarines where they're like, it's this rule and it's this rule and it's this rule. They really are. They want to put on the front of being just the most angelic, the most graceful, the most in defense of humanity.
And to achieve that, they try to sweep the undesirables under the rug into their death companies.
So it's not quite so simple, because
it's for everyone's protection.
It right. is on two. It's for other people's protection, and it's also for their own. So because they have the death companies, the death company is when you get taken by the Black Rage, 99.999% of the time, you're done. I think there are one, maybe two people that have come back from that. There's Astaroth. I think that's his name. Mm-hmm. No, that's not it. He is the Blood Angel. You're going to forgive me, but he is the Blood Angel that his whole job is to collect the soul, or is to go reap the ones that are succumbing to the Black Rage. He could literally hear it. Like, it's like a call to him when they're getting ready to slip into the Black Rage. And so,
really? They can just feel it coming on.
And so, whenever he shows up to your area, you know that you or somebody else is getting ready to fall to the Black Rage.
Oh,
so he survived it, and I can't remember if Set is his name. He is the head of a Blood Angels chapter called the Flesh Terrors.
The Flesh Terrors,
and they are super duper aggressive. And I can't remember if he came back from the Black Rage. Maybe not. Anyway,
we'll find survivors.
So what I like about them is they try to pay for their sins. Well, hold on, back up. I missed the point. One of the other reasons why they sweep this all under the rug is because if the Inquisition, which is this branch of the Imperium that keeps everything nice and copacetic covertly, were they to find out the extent of this mutation, and some of the Inquisition, if they were to find about any of it, they would possibly be sanctioned.
Them, right? Yeah.
And they would have
traitors.
Considered traitors, and they would possibly have to fight the Volca Fenrica or the Sisters of Silence, or any forces of the Imperium that the Inquisition deems necessary to throw at them.
Right.
So their Primarch is Sanguinius, also known as the Angel.
Yeah.
And he's known that way, guys, if you ever see a picture of him. Big, massive, white
beautiful face.
Yes. Gorgeous.
He is so nice.
Gorgeous.
But he's also the best fighter of the Primarchs. The most mighty.
I see. Really?
Yeah. I mean, he's generally accepted to be the best fighter, and also, like, he won against Kobanda, Greater Demon.
Greater
Demon. In a one-on-one battle in the air. That's not. And if you ever see the pictures of him versus Kabanda, it's not like two equal-sized opponents. This demon is like head and shoulders bigger than Sanguinius is.
Oh, yeah.
And he ends up winning against him in the skies and throws his body down. So, I mean, Sanguinius was widely considered, I believe, to be the best single combatant of the right before Jagatai Khan.
Ah.
Speaking of Jagatai Khan,
is he next?
He is next. Him and the White Scars. They're cool. Moving on. So the White Scars are there. There's no two ways about it. Their mystique, their aesthetic is very Mongolian. The Mongols,
right?
They are Mongol hordes on motorbikes.
Yep. Instead of horses, they have the spaceships and motorbikes and things like that.
Love it.
I'm not as familiar with them. You can tell the ones that I know and the ones that I don't.
A lot of in the lore really suggests it's so weird that Jagatai Khan didn't go to Chaos.
Really?
Not because he's not because he's chaotic or corruptible, just because he really doesn't like the Imperium and he just has a chip on his shoulder against the Emperor.
Huh.
But it was almost kind of just like a fuck you, Dad. I'm going to fight for you. Just
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, Jagatai, I think, likes freedom. And he realizes he would get more of it under the Imperium than he would under Chaos.
Yeah.
Also, Jagatai's his loyalty is he doesn't give his loyalty easy, and he's not going to break it. He's the best swordsman of the Primarchs.
Right.
Where he's at now, he's missing as well.
I believe so.
But where, I'm not sure.
Okay.
He's another one that's missing, but I honestly couldn't tell you where Jagatai, what happened with him.
Help me spell it, and maybe I'll be able to find something.
Jaghatai. Jagatai Khan.
Let's see. Is Jagatai Khan still alive? The White Scars believe he is.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
Somewhere
so we
within
actually,
the webway.
okay, I do remember where Jagatai is now. Jagatai is looking for some sort of relic in the webway that he believes was stolen by the Dark Eldar.
Okay.
And a lot of people have theorized that he's possibly being held captive by the Drukhari now.
Oh, interesting.
Which they'd love to get them hands on a Primarch. Mm-hmm. So he's another one still alive, missing. Next up are the Dark Angels. They are neat.
So they're the first Legion.
They are. They're Legion number 1.
And the Emperor used them for a lot of wet work.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of black ops.
Okay.
So and they were given a lot of the cool toys that were too experimental to give out to the other ones.
Really?
So they have a lot of the they have alien. They would have access to alien tech, xenotech.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Is that not heresy?
Well, I mean, if it's given to you by the Emperor, no.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay. Right.
No, so you have to remember, even chain swords are considered to, at one point, to have probably been alien tech because the Eldar have them.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so the Eldar probably had them first.
Okay.
Yeah. And their Primarch is the Lion.
Yep. Lion L. Johnson, which means Lion of the Forest. So in the world where he came from, Johnson means forest. That's terrible.
It's like Land Raider. It's just weird.
No, but I get that. But why would... No.
I mean, a forest of trees, Look at
this big... I won't go there. Look at this big, lush, ever-growing Johnson. Just... Hawk yonder upon the great and mighty Johnson.
So...
it just doesn't have the same ring to it. The Dark Johnson of whatever? No.
Their home world is Caliban. And it had a rich history of knights, which was they adopted into the Dark Angels. So they're all about knights and honor.
While the Salamanders act like knights, the Dark Angels look like knights.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha. Interesting.
You can see some of them there. They the way they operate is they have different wings which handle different things. So they're able to cover a lot of different scenarios.
Okay. So they're pretty flexible.
Because they were used to working independently for so long.
They gotcha.
Didn't work alongside other Astartes very much. So they were used to handling all the things by themselves.
Is this more covert or is it kind of just...
Depends on the wing.
Okay. Right.
There's the
Very
Dread
versatile.
Wing.
Right.
There's the Dread Wing, which is more covert, I believe.
Okay.
Or is that the Raven Wing?
I can name them, but I wouldn't know their specialty.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I could be getting those mixed up, so I'll stop now.
Okay.
Lionel Johnson is presumed dead,
I see.
but in fact, he is not. He is actually asleep in stasis chamber, and nobody knows it, but he's actually at the center of the Dark Angels fortress on their homeworld.
Nobody
Caliban?
knows.
Caliban was destroyed. It's the Rock.
The Rock. Okay.
I think it's the Rock, which is their home fortress.
So, do his Astartes know it?
Nobody knows.
They don't even know it.
Nobody knows.
Oh,
What the chapter master knows is they actually have Luther. Now, Luther was Lionel Johnson's adopted father on the planet until they were discovered by the Emperor. When Lionel Johnson took over the Dark Angels, he brought Luther along. He was too old to become an Astartes, but they were able to augment him to compete. So he was his head in command, second in command, when he actually betrayed Lionel Johnson during the Horus Heresy. And he actually went insane because he later tried to repent, and he's very Judas-like, like he betrayed him and then repented.
Felt bad afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a rogue faction of Dark Angels called the Fallen.
The Fallen, yeah.
They tried to rebel during the Horus Heresy.
But they clamped that shit down tight.
Yeah.
They're
Fallen
like,
Angels.
nope.
And no one knows that, so they're terrified of people finding out.
Because it'll ruin their reputation.
I see. Okay, another secret among Astartes.
Oh, there's all kinds. Now, only the chapter master, which is the head of the Dark Angels, knows that they have Luther. They still have him alive. And he's in the same fortress as Lionel Johnson.
Whoa.
And anytime they try to interview him, he's just stark raving mad, and he keeps claiming that the lion is close, his time is near, and that he will forgive Luther when he comes back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But here recently, it's actually come out that Luther's gone missing.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Any ideas?
Nope.
How? No,
because only the chapter master knew they have him to begin with. So it's not like he can be like, find him. They're like, find who?
Oh, no. Okay, gotcha. Holy shit.
So that's leading a lot of people to speculate that the lion might be next.
Oh,
because he kept saying that the lion's time is getting closer. It's happening.
To wake up.
I see.
Yep. Although I think it's going to be Angron, and I think it's going to be in the Arctara sector. I think he's just going to be like, ooh, this looks like fun. I hope so. I hope that's who the next one. So after that, we have the Imperial Fists. The Imperial Fists they're bright gold and yellow. They are the Bastion Builders. These guys specialize in building forts. And they're really good at it.
Yeah.
Strongholds.
They take a planet, they build a big fort, and then they move on. Well, and the fort gets filled.
Okay. They just kind of...
Yep. So they just... and it's funny.
Fortify. They fucking fortify.
It's funny because people kind of... So each Primarch has like a special thing to them, and they're not all equal, right? Like Vulcan's a perpetual. He comes back.
Right.
Corvus Corax's is he has a unnatural talent at stealth and hit and run attacks.
Okay.
And people are like, well, that's not fair. Like, one's invincible, and like Rogal Dawn, he gets to build walls. I'm like, yeah, but have you seen those goddamn walls that he builds? Like, come on.
Pretty grandiose, I would imagine, huh?
Oh my God. Like, they're insane.
What are we, like, just towering above everything?
Towering with turrets like every 4 feet. They're like thousands of feet thick. They're like around an entire city. Like,
yeah.
There is this phenomenon, guys, that I use with Eric for shorthand. I said, it's like this, only you 40K it, which means you drive it to its absolute extreme, like, edge.
Oh, there's a meme or like a little blurb where it's like, every day I have to break out of my house, and every night I have to break back in. Then I work on my defenses. I rebuild. I hope one day that I will either be locked out of my house forever or entombed. And it's just got a picture of a smirking Rogal Dorn.
That sounds like an Imperial Fist to me.
Yeah. That's so great. Oh, yeah, nice.
Just random green text from the internet.
I love it.
Nope. So and that they're very by the book. very stoic. They don't react to much, and that's because Rogaldorn, their Primarch, he's like stoicism on legs.
He was anti Codex.
He was anti-Astartes or anti-Codex Astartes.
He did not want the legions to be broken up into smaller chapters.
Nope, he said it was heresy because it's not what his father said to do.
And I'll bet he really stonewalled them.
One of his groups found the loophole where you can have any size chapter you want if you're crusading.
And so he's always crusading.
Black Templars formed from the Imperial Fists.
Oh God,
and they were just on an eternal crusade.
Yep.
Oh no.
And you know what? The Salamanders aren't Codex compliant either.
They're not.
No. They Vulcan was very much against it. He felt because he treats his sons very much like for the Salamanders, family is paramount. They only recruit people from their own home world of Nocturne, and they are the only Astartes chapter that when they are not on duty, they get to go home and live with the families they started with. Only the Salamanders do that.
Okay.
So,
and that's not Codex compliant.
No, because you break it down from a legion into chapters, which are much smaller. And so Vulcan was very much against this idea of splitting up family. And I think the way he weaseled out of it, because he's also not a rule breaker either. Vulcan's good boy, despite being a mammoth. He basically said, like, hey, after the Horus Heresy, we were one of the legions that got particularly devastated, which is true.
They were at the drop site
massacre, which means they just got wiped the fuck out and that was at the very beginning.
It was the Iron Hands, the Raven Guard, and the Salamanders.
Those three Astartes those three legions got massacred, and he's like, we don't have enough to comply with this.
Right.
So can we have an exemption? And Gilliman was like, yeah, and they're like, okay, don't listen to that shit no more.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
So there's the Iron Hands. And that's the 7,
8, 9.
9. That is the
loyalists.
The loyalist legions.
The loyalist legions. And that'll wrap up part 1 of episode 1 of the Cult of Lore. Thank you so much for listening. We will be picking up part 2 with the Traitor Legions. We look forward to seeing you guys here again very soon. Plenty more to come. Again, we're going to be digging into the Traitor Legions, and then from there we're going to be going into more of the history and lore of the Imperium of Man of Warhammer. Thank you so much for listening. Please check out @CultTalkNet at all of our social medias. Search the internet, you'll find it, and stay tuned for more Cult of Lore.